I'm reading this story this morning. Matt Petgrave. I'm not much of a sports person. I don't really watch sports, and I don't know. Watching this clip, it's disturbing, and I saw it a couple of weeks ago. But Matt Petgrave, he's a hockey defenseman, and his skate actually slit the throat of Adam Johnson on October 28th. That was a game in England, and it led to Adam Johnson dying. And I mean, news just in, Matt Petgrave, he got the standing ovation during the team's first home game. And Matt Petgrave, he wasn't even there. They just kind of showed his picture on the screen there. And this was their first home game back since Adam Johnson died at the age of 29. And uh, what the hell is wrong with people? These people stood up and cheered for Matt Petgrave. He slit somebody's throat. Now, I'm not saying he did it intentionally. I'm going to call it an incident for now, a tragedy. But at the end of the day, this guy took a man's life, and you're going to stand up and I think it's like 8,000 people stood up. We're going to get to that here in the 7 o'clock hour. I'm just reading through it this morning, and my jaw dropped when I saw 8,000 people stand up and start clapping for this guy. And the propaganda that they're shoving down people's throats when it comes to this story, it's unbelievable. So we're going to get to that here in the 7 o'clock hour. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Kat Peterson. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's Kat Peterson 929. That helps me out. 309-451-9299. You can text in, always be a part of the show. People are already texting me, good morning. Good morning to you, my friend. Go ahead, pull up a chair, grab a cup of coffee. Let's get into it. Joe Biden mumbling his way around APEC with his BFF, Xi Jinping. This is deeply disturbing to see the video footage of all the Chinese flags. It's red and it's yellow. I mean, it looks straight up like China, communist China, the streets of San Francisco. Of course, Gavin Newsom, he cleared out all the poop and all of the homeless people. And Xi Jinping is like, "Did you do it? Did you clean up the homeless people?" Yes, Xi Jinping, we got it. We got the homeless people out of the way so you could come. Yeah, this is terrible. And Xi Jinping, Joe Biden, we're going to talk about what happened with APEC. Next, I do want to talk about a guy who has been arrested in connection with the death of a Jewish man. We've talked about this story here. An elderly Jewish man, ironically, he got hit in the head with a megaphone. That's, I mean, very sad, but it's almost like poetic in a way, because this is where your free speech ends. I'm sorry, pro-Palestinian protesters, but your free speech ends when you take a megaphone and you think it's okay to put a man to death, like to execute a man. I mean, he clubbed him in the head with a megaphone. The elderly man, Paul Kessler, he drops down to the ground. And this all happened during a counter protesting. The Paul Kessler, the elderly man, he was a Jewish man. He went and he was counter protesting this pro Palestinian demonstration. And Paul Kessler, he's dead. So that happened in California. We're going to get to that story. Plus, more ballot fraud caught on camera. Yes, ballot fraud. A man told NBC Boston, so this happened in Massachusetts, folks, that when he went to go vote in person at his local polling site in Massachusetts, it was Lawrence, Massachusetts, he was told that he had already voted. So ballot fraud happens nationwide, and it can happen. That's why we have election laws on the books, because you can't steal elections. And this guy told NBC Boston, hey, I went to go vote and they told me I already voted. So that story is really interesting. I'm going to get into it here on the Morning Buzz. Americans, they take the threat of China very seriously. In fact, many people want Congress to start putting the interests of the American people first. And you can see that here in our own communities. Manteno, Illinois. I grew up just about 20 minutes from there, and they're looking to put Goshen, which is this Chinese battery company, in their own bylaws. They say that At the end of the day, they serve the party and anything to further the party. It's in their bylaws. It's in the company's bylaws. They have deep tie, not even deep ties. They are the CCP, Goshen, this battery company. And Governor J.B. Pritzker in the federal government, they are looking to give these folks $8 billion in incentives to come here. That's taxpayer money, state, federal taxpayer money. And they want Goshen to come here and to really just take over America. Okay. And the American people, Illinoisans specifically, we're sick of it. Nobody is for this Goshen battery factory at all. You look at polling, and a majority of Illinoisans are against it. A majority of Michigan voters are against this. There is a Goshen battery plant set to go up in Michigan, and the people want our politicians to be tough on China. Okay, that's what the people want. We want to put America first. And why wouldn't we be tough on a government that engages in human rights violations? They do things like population control. Okay, I know somebody who adopted Chinese children, and they adopted these Chinese children because these Chinese children were girls, and at the time they were executing girls, second born girls or something like that in China. And this wasn't like, 60 years ago. This was in recent, because these Chinese girls that I know, they were adopted. They're my age, so they were adopted about 20 years ago or something like that. So this is in recent history where China was literally executing baby girls because they were trying to control the population. They have population control methods, forced labor, internment camps, okay, torture, mass surveillance. They separate families, and they also repress religious expression. They don't allow you to express religion over there. You can't go to church. Okay, a Christian in China? Oh yeah, good luck. That doesn't happen over there. And I've told you before, these companies. I think it was Apple or something at the time, where they were putting up suicide nets. There's these big, big buildings, and they're making the iPhone, right? And people were overworked. I mean, this was forced labor. They didn't want to work there. They were working on behalf of the CCP, and people would jump out of the windows of these skyscrapers, from the 20th floor. People would jump out. And what the CCP did, they didn't want people to jump out and kill themselves. What the CCP did, they put suicide nets around the building. Okay, that's what the why wouldn't we be tough on a government that engages in that sort of behavior and in those kinds of methods? Okay. But of course, that wouldn't stop Biden from greeting Xi Jinping with a warm handshake. So yes, I saw this, and this made me nauseous. We saw Joe Biden shaking the hand of Xi Jinping, and it looked like they missed each other so much. As BFF, they love each other. It looks like they missed each other. The last time they spoke probably was around the Chinese spy balloon as an incident, and Joe Biden probably called up his old friend Xi Jinping and was like, "Hey, uh, did you get everything you needed from the? Did you spot? Did you have enough surveillance of our country? Did you steal enough of our technology? Did you find out? I mean, if you look at the pattern of where that Chinese spy balloon went, it flew actually right over. I think it's like Southern Illinois, and in Southern Illinois, that's where they make planes, military planes. I think Boeing is down there. So yeah, that's the last time they probably spoke with each other. So I'm sure he was really missing his friend, and I'm sure he's glad to be back with his old friend Xi Jinping. Pooh Bear Xi, he was in San Francisco at this Asia Pacific Economic Cooperative Conference. Now I'm going to refer to that as APEC. And all you really need to know, I know that's a lot of words. All you really need to know is that's globalization. That's globalization. This is the reason the progressive run city, Xi Jinping coming into town for this conference, this progressive run city, San Francisco, was magically cleaned up last week. And it's not speculation. Gavin Newsom came out and said, yeah, Xi Jinping was coming to town. He's a fancy leader and he's coming to town, and you clean up your house when guests come over. And it was magically cleaned up last week. So APEC, they claim that they claim to create greater prosperity for people of the region. So APEC, it's the Asia Pacific. It's all of the countries that outline the Pacific Ocean. Okay, um, but they claim that they create greater prosperity for people in those regions by promoting balanced, inclusive, sustainable, innovative, and secure growth. And by accelerating regional economic integration, whatever that means. It's just globalization. That's all this is. So, according to the Washington Times, Beijing continues to blame America for problems uh, in bilateral relations and urges Washington to establish correct views of China. So the American people don't like China, and you can see that very clearly with the Manteno, Illinois battery plant. If you poll people, if you look at the polls, if you look at the surveys, people don't have a very favorable view of China. Beijing wants to correct that, and they're blaming America for the problems in these for problems with our relationships with China and for our views of China. So it's the American government's job to produce propaganda that negates the fact that China has deprived their citizens of rights and of basic freedoms as a way to stay in power. Okay, that's what Xi Jinping has done as a dictator. He deprives his citizens of rights and basic freedoms, and he does all of this so that way he can remain in power as a dictator. And don't take my word for it. Joe Biden called him a dictator. So I don't understand why we're talking about how America as a government needs to produce propaganda, or how we need to fix our relationships with China to establish correct views of China. Okay, that's what that whole meeting was all about. And according to Fox News, Biden, he's set to strike a deal with China that would limit the use of artificial intelligence in nuclear weapons. Biden and Xi will agree to limit AI use in the systems for nuclear weapons as well as drones. So that's what that meeting was also about yesterday. Hey, Joe Biden, I guess, is supposed to strike a deal, and we know that Joe Biden probably isn't all that great at deals. But critics argue that this is essentially the United States giving up a strategic advantage it currently holds over China, as they currently and China actually currently lags in AI. So we could be using AI, okay, in our nuclear weapons, because we've got so much more. We're so much more ahead on China when it comes to AI, and this is giving up a strategic advantage that we could have over China when it comes to our nuclear weapons. If we use AI in those nuclear weapons, AI, nothing to be scared of if you use it correctly and if you use it for America first. Okay. So this is what this guy tells Fox News Digital. He says this is incredibly poor decision to begin with. China lags behind in the United States when it comes to AI capabilities. Yes. So the Biden administration is basically just giving away this strategic advantage that we've got. Additionally, AI helps reduce stress to improve decision making, which is crucial in preventing poor decisions to release nuclear weapons. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't like AI all that much. I mean, it's not something to be afraid of. It can be good. Uh, it's just that I don't trust the Biden administration to really work with AI when it comes to our nuclear weapons, because we know that they're programming AI to be as liberal as heck. But hours before Biden met with this communist dictator, the United States and China agreed to resume a working group and pledged a major ramp up of renewable energy. So that also happened at APEC. So in other words, all of these costly energy policies, the windmills going up, and the solar industrial plants going up, those are going to ramp up. Okay. And it's not going to strengthen us. It's only going to strengthen China. Uh, but it'll be at the expense, of course, of the American people, and like Goshen battery plant, these things. That's what they talked about in their meeting. So why does everything Biden do seem to benefit China? Why does everything Joe Biden does? I mean, from taking away or from discussing and really losing the strategic advantage of not using AI in our nuclear weapon systems and ceding that to China, because we know that China does not have the capabilities when it comes to AI that the United States does. Why does he give up that strategic advantage? Also, why is he ramping up this renewable energy? And we know that these are costly energy policies. We know that they only strengthen China. They don't help us here, the American people. It makes everything cost way more. Look at your gas, right? Look at the gas. That's why gas is so much, because of these costly energy policies that we've got cooking. Everything he does benefits China. And on top of that, China has a long history of not honoring their agreements. Okay. So we might actually say, okay, we're going to regulate AI when it comes to our nuclear weapons. And they might come to an agreement on that. And China says, oh, yeah, well, we're going to limit our AI when it comes to nuclear weapons as well. But here's the thing, China lies, okay? China has a history of not honoring their agreements. So most likely, we'll say, "Oh, yeah, we won't do," and the United States will make good on our promise. "Hey, we're not gonna put AI into our nuclear weapons program." Uh, but China's gonna turn around and do it in their nuclear weapons program. So, yeah, we deserve better than what's being dealt our way as the American people. The last thing that government officials should be doing is striking deals with a nation that is arguably so set on destroying the freedoms around the world. They want to destroy freedom. Make no mistake, China wants one world order, and their end goal is to be the only economic powerhouse, the only the only country. They want to be the only guy. They want one world order, and I think we deserve better than this. And Joe Biden, he's always doing things that benefit them and not us. I do want to take a quick break, and I hope that helped. Why was it Joe Biden was meeting with his best friend Xi Jinping? Well, they talked about AI and the AI capabilities in the nuclear weapons programs in both China and America, and they were supposed to come to some sort of deal. They also were talking about China and this environment trying to ramp up renewable energy. Of course, we know that doesn't help us here in America. It only makes things more expensive. And yeah, that's what they talked about. I'm going to be back on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. Yeah, so key takeaways from that segment. Good morning. It's Friday. Like I said, what did they talk about? They talked about this renewable energy, and we know that this renewable energy and these policies, these green weenie policies, they don't benefit America at all. If anything, it just is more expensive for you. They're very costly, and just for example, the Manteno, Illinois Goshen battery plant. Okay, that's going to cost the American taxpayers $8 billion because we're incentivizing this country with that money to come here and to build in Manteno, Illinois, in Michigan. They tried to build in Alabama, and it's just costly. And there is no benefit to the American people. In fact, it comes at the expense of the American people, these renewable energy policies. Um, then they talked about AI. And look, I think that it's an incredibly poor decision to um, take AI off of the table when it comes to nuclear weapons. I think that that's a poor decision on Biden and Xi Jinping's behalf. They said that they're going to agree to limit AI in systems for nuclear weapons as well as drones. But here's the thing. Xi Jinping, he does not honor his agreements. Okay, that he's a dictator and he is all about making China the number one world superpower and the only superpower. Okay, that's what he's about, and he lies and he doesn't honor his agreements. Joe Biden has given up now because we know that America will make good on this agreement and we won't use AI in our nuclear weapons programs, but Xi Jinping will. So now we've given up this strategic advantage because actually the United States, in one area that we're better at than China, a lot of areas because we've got God, but AI, we've got way more AI capabilities. We've got Elon Musk, who has, developed a lot of cool technology when it comes to that. And we've got some powerhouses here in America. And I think that we're further ahead on AI than China is. I really do. And, I think it would benefit us to use AI in our nuclear weapons programs because AI helps reduce stress to improve decision making, which is crucial, of course, when trying to prevent a poor decision to release nuclear weapons. So I think that AI could be, I don't like any of it, but if we're going to, we definitely shouldn't let the bad guys get to use it. And we agree to not use it. Okay. The bad guys will use it. So yeah, that's my take there. They also talked about relationships, which I thought was interesting. I mean, practically they think that the American government, they're not doing a good job of producing propaganda that negates the fact that China and the Chinese actually deprive their citizens of rights and freedoms. And they do this in order to remain in power. Xi Jinping does. So that was a little bit of their talk. So, according to the Washington Times, Beijing continues to blame America for problems in bilateral relations and urges Washington to establish correct views of China. So there is a disdain, and we don't like China. Okay, and that's pretty clear when you poll people about the Mantino battery plant, for example. When you tell people that Goshen is actually a CCP company, then the polls change. They say, "Oh, I don't want that here." Because people understand that China deprives their citizens of rights, and we don't want forced labor. We don't want population control. We don't want China's way of life to be implemented here in the United States. And that's what this APEC meeting was all about. How can the American government produce propaganda that helps out China? And how can we screw ourselves over when it comes to AI in our nuclear weapon systems? And then third was, hey, uh, renewable energy. How can we screw over the American people with these costly energy programs and these policies that will only strengthen China because of their economy? Okay, they build the windmills, they do the solar plants. Okay, they're the solar panels, they do all of that, and it's only going to benefit China, and it's going to come at the expense of the American people because these things are costly. If you're watching, go ahead and smash the like button. Gavin didn't even flinch when he was asked if he only cleaned up the streets for CCP. He said yes, and then nothing else. Yes. So, I mean, it was a big screw you to the Californians. And here's the thing, he doesn't care. He does not care um, because he is running. Um, He's running for president, and I believe that he thinks that he's got security in that China could probably steal the election for him if they wanted to. Okay, foreign interference in our election, and he's got his pal Xi Jinping right on his side. He's going to ensure that he becomes the president of the United States. Xi Jinping will, because he's going to do everything he can to ensure China becomes the next world superpower and is and he achieves the one world order, the one world government. Okay. And Xi Jinping, make no mistake, he is not below or he's not below stealing a United States election to favor somebody who is going to make it possible for him to achieve that. Okay. He does not, Xi Jinping does not want President Donald Trump back in office. Okay. Because those tariffs screwed him. They were great for Americans, those tariffs, especially farmers, right? But yeah, Xi Jinping does not want Donald Trump back. Good morning. Hey, just to run through real quick, I know that was a long segment and I know it was kind of complicated. Three things that happened at this APEC conference with Joe Biden and his BFF, Xi Jinping. Uh, Three things that happened. So at the conference, they talked about how it's supposed to be America's job to produce propaganda that negates the fact that the Chinese people are deprived of their rights and freedoms. Okay. And the reason why they're deprived of those rights and freedoms is so Xi Jinping can remain in power and so he can stay in power. So if the Chinese people had rights, freedoms, they'd vote him out of office, right? But the Chinese people are deprived of those rights and deprived of basic freedoms. So Xi Jinping remains in power. And we need to do a better job here in America to establish the correct views of China. So that was what they discussed, number one. Number two, they talked and they struck a deal uh, that says that they're both going to limit the use, China and the United States, we're both going to limit the use of artificial intelligence and nuclear weapons. And Biden and Xi Jinping, they agreed to limit AI in those systems, in the systems for our nuclear weapons. They both agreed, as well for drones. So nuclear weapons, drones, we're going to limit the use of AI. But like I said, people argue that the United States is giving up a strategic advantage if we give up AI in our systems, in our nuclear weapons programs, because we are so far ahead of China when it comes to AI. They're actually lagging in AI, and we're giving up this strategic advantage. And AI it helps reduce stress and improve decision making, which is crucial when preventing poor decisions to release nuclear weapons. So I don't think that AI would be bad in our nuclear weapons program. But here's the thing. China, they are not going to make good on their agreement. Okay, they're going to turn right around. They're going to put AI in their nuclear weapons. We're going to make good on the agreement and we're not going to put AI in our nuclear weapons. And they're going to be much further ahead in their nuclear weapons program than the United States is. And look, the third thing that they talked about was this renewable energy crap. So they want to ramp up the renewable energy, and that only benefits China. It does not benefit the American people, despite what the climate alarmists say. It doesn't benefit the American people at all because China makes the windmills. They make the solar industrial plants, the solar panels. Okay. They make all of that stuff. So they have everything to gain from ramping up the renewable energy, but it costs a lot for the American people. We see that day to day to day. That's why your gas is so expensive. Okay. So that's what they talked about. And at the end of the day, we need to know that everything Biden does benefits China. Everything Biden does benefits China. Okay. Do want to switch gears here. Today is National Take a Hike Day. Take a hike day. So it's a great day to take a walk outside. Today is also National Homemade Bread Day. It's really hard to make bread. I like making naan, which I've been trying to recreate Indian food. It's always great when we have a really large Indian population here in Bloomington Normal. And if you don't believe me, go to Walmart at about 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. I don't know why. They're so tightly knit, the Indian community, right? They're so tightly knit. And I think they all just go to the grocery store together, their families, right? Just go to the grocery store together because I go in about 9 or 10 o'clock on Veterans Parkway at Walmart. It's just packed with Indian people. And I've been trying to make Indian food. I like going out for Indian food. I know you're like, ugh, Indian food. Ugh. Some people like it. Some people hate it. It's never in between. I love it. I think it's very good. And I've recreated it a couple of times and I can make naan bread really good. And basically what it is, it's like a pita bread. and that's really fun to make. But like if you're making a loaf, it can get hard. Sourdough is really tough. I've made homemade bagels before. That's kind of tough, but it's time to start thinking about making homemade bread because it's Thanksgiving time. And that brings me to holiday weight gain. It's real. And most of us are trying to not embrace it, okay? Or most of us are trying to embrace it, actually, if you look at this poll. I'm trying to not embrace it. I'm doing everything I can to stay away from the cookies, from the turkey, from the, sugar, but a lot of Americans actually just embrace it. So 75% of Americans say that they're planning to enjoy the end of the year and not worry about their diet. That's kind of it's kinda concerning when you've got, like, 75% of Americans that were, polled in this survey. Uh, they're just saying, to heck with it. I'm not worried about my diet at all." That's up from 50% last year. So this same time last year, they did this survey again. It's an annual survey they do, and 50% of Americans last year said that they weren't planning to worry about their diet during this time period. So most surveyed actually expect to gain 8 pounds before the end of the year. That's up from 5 pounds last year. So they think, I'm going to gain about 8 pounds. That's a lot. That's a lot to gain in a short period of time from like Thanksgiving to Christmas. But I don't know, 5 pounds, that makes sense. 8 pounds, that's kind of like getting to, whoa, that's a lot to gain. That's like bulking. 66% say that they use the end of the year to postpone being healthy. So they actually use the end of the year to stop being healthy. And then, when it gets to that new year, then they ramp up the gym membership again. And that's actually a 24% increase from 2022. People who say that they use the end of the year to stop being healthy. Wow. That said, um, most are confident that they will get back on track in the new year. So 70% of them said that they are confident that they'll get back to their healthy habits in the new year. And respondents of the survey also said that they it takes them about an average of 19 days to get back on track with their healthy habits. I mean, I don't see a problem with it, I guess. I find it much harder. So once I stopped going to the gym, so I actually was sick for a couple of weeks there, and I don't know what I had, but I couldn't kick it. It was a week and a half I was sick, and I just stopped running. So uh, I don't run super fast, but I run typically at like a 7.2 on the treadmill. I don't know what that is, but I typically run at a 7.2, can usually finish my mile in about 9 minutes. But when I got sick and I was out of the gym for a week and a half, I'm not kidding you, I went down from 7.2 to about 6.0, and I could barely do it. And it takes a long time. So I'm not even ramped back up. I mean, I've been back in the gym for about a week or so, and I'm not anywhere near 7.2 still. So it takes a long time to get back on track. So I find that, the end of the year, this is my chance to, you know, stay on top on track and to not go off track. And I really don't try to postpone being healthy. I try to be healthy all year round, right? Because it just makes you feel better. And when you don't feel good around the holidays, when you get sick, when you don't go outside, when you don't run, when you don't exercise, then you can't enjoy the holidays because you're sick around the holidays. And I think that's why people get sick probably most of the time around the holidays. One, you're around other people a lot. Two, if you're throwing your health to the wind and you're like, whatever, then you probably are going to get sick. I've got to take a quick break, but when we come back, I've got so much to get to today. As always, live in studio. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. We do have a lot to get to today, and I want to make sure that I get to this guy who has been arrested in connection with the death of that Jewish man. He was an elderly Jewish man who was clubbed over the head with a megaphone, fell to the ground. NBC at the time reported it. Man falls and hits his head and dies. Like, that's how NBC reported it. And you'd be like, oh, did he trip? No, he was clubbed in the head with a megaphone and then fell to the ground and then died. So we're going to talk a little bit about Paul Kessler. tragic story, but also there's ballot fraud in Boston or in Massachusetts. NBC Boston's got that story, and I'm excited to tell you about it next on the buzz. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. It's Friday, and we're going to be chatting a little bit about this ballot fraud that happened in Massachusetts. Yes. So, this guy, he went to his local polling place, and this is like my fear. I don't know what I would do in this scenario, but this guy goes to his local polling place, and they tell him that he already voted. And he's like, "No, I didn't." And then he goes back and he checks out his Ring cam doorbell, video footage, and what he finds is completely shocking. Smash the like button, and we're gonna get into that story right now. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's Camp Peterson 929. And ballot fraud, more ballot fraud caught on camera. And if you don't think ballot fraud happens, then just watch the movie 2000 Mules. We talked a little bit about 2000 Mules yesterday, but this is an interesting story. This guy, he actually goes to NBC Boston and he tells them about this incident where he goes to his local polling site in Lawrence, Massachusetts. So this story is out of Massachusetts. I want to be very clear that this is a story out of Massachusetts, and he was told that he had already voted. So he goes to go vote early and vote in person or early at his local polling site in Lawrence, Massachusetts, and he was told that he already voted via mail. So then he goes back and he checks out his Ring doorbell camera footage, and what goes on is pretty shocking. So we're going to get to that. Plus, a man has been arrested in connection with this death of a Jewish man. His name was Paul Kessler. Now he was hit on the head, behind the head here, with a megaphone while he was attending this pro-Palestinian demonstration and counter protesting, and a man has been arrested. So I want to start there, and then I'm going to get into the ballot fraud. But wow, California professor. So this all happened in California. I told you about the Jewish man. He's elderly. He was 69 years old. He was struck on the head while waving an Israel flag on November 5th in protest of a pro-Palestinian demonstration. So he was counter protesting. That's his right. He was there. He was just waving a flag. And Paul Kessler was last seen lying on a sidewalk in a pool of blood, and he was rushed to the hospital. The medical examiner's office ruled his death a homicide. And who killed him? Well, allegedly, it was this guy. He's a California professor, and he is also a faculty advisor there at this university in California. It's a university in California. It's a small one. But it's so he's the faculty advisor of that Muslim student association, and his son is actually the officer of that student association. So his name is El Naji, and he's Muslim. And he was involved with multiple Islam groups and has publicly vocalized support for Hamas terrorists, according to his social media account. So that's this story. I mean, whew, it's kind of it's tragic. It's just tragic. And this man, he's arrested in connection with the death of the Jewish man. Jewish man's name is Paul Kessler. Like I said, hit on the head with a megaphone, which I said it was kind of ironic. I mean, people are always saying, where does your free speech end? These pro-Palestinians, these protesters, your free speech is totally fine. I mean, I have no issue of you going out there and making an idiot of yourself and talking about how you want to free Palestine when Palestine isn't even a country and you don't even understand the history of where we're at. Okay, free. And when you chant things or have things on your signs that say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, and you're like, oh, that's not anti-Semitic. Okay, but do you know what that means? It means from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, Palestine will be free. So that means the complete eradication of the country Israel. And like I've said multiple times, if you want to truly understand what's going on in the Middle East and what has been going on for centuries, then look no further of what happened here in Seattle, United States. What happened was this little autonomous zone broke away from Seattle, and they created a little city called Chaz. and then they duly elected people with guns. That's what the Palestinian people did. These Palestinians, they elected people with guns, which I mean, that's Hamas. Okay, so they're the same people essentially. The Palestinians, Hamas, they elected these people, and they go around and they protect the borders of Palestine, these Palestinian territories. There's no country. It's not an official country. It's a ragtag group of activists, radical Islamists. That's what it is. So, in case you missed it, actually, protesters actually crashed this annual Democrat meeting at ISU in the Bone Student Center. So, Crystal Abel, she actually is a McLean County board member, and she's very much pro-Palestine, and she wrote on her social media, "People from the community, including students, demonstrated at the Obama Legacy Dinner for a free Palestine and ceasefire. Their demand was that Democrats come out and see them." So there's a bunch of students that looks like Illinois State University students, possibly even a professor there, laying on the ground, and they've got signs that say "Free Palestine." They have also got a sign that says "From the river to the sea, the Palestine people will be free." Like I said, that's anti-Semitic, and it advocates for the eradication of Israel. So, they'll say that Zionism, that they're anti-Zionism, what Zionism is, and it's just kind of tragic that these people don't know. They don't know that after the Roman Empire destroyed Israel and destroyed the Jewish state, that was the Roman Empire 70 AD. All of the Jewish people were scattered around the world, and actually biblical prophecy tells us, and it has already come to pass. God said that the Jewish people would be gathered in one place again. And in 1948, the United Nations, they finally, after all of these Jewish people scattered, they all finally came, and we recognized Israel as a country. We recognized them as a Jewish state. And that happened in 1948. Since 1948, the surrounding Arabs, and I've said that, what is it, 300 million people that surround Israel or something like that. And there's only like 7 million people in Israel. So, I mean, you tell me who's oppressed there, okay? And there's been land offers. I mean, Israel used to be much bigger. In fact, the Bible says that Israel should be much bigger. It should be parts of Syria and Iraq, Iran. There should be parts of Israel that have been given up to the Arab people. Okay, they gave it up in these land offers. I mean, there was a very controversial one in 2005. Anyway, so the Israel people have constantly been the oppressed, the occupied. They have constantly, the surrounding Arab nations have been more and more aggressive over the years, and they've taken bits and pieces of Israel. In fact, Israel gave up Gaza. Okay, Israel gave up Gaza, the Gaza Strip, to the Palestinians or to the Arab people, and like it's just so tragic. And the reason why is because none of these people, I'm sure, read the Bible. In fact, Crystal Abel's long-term boyfriend has been seen on tape in video hailing Satan, like actually saying "Hail Satan." Okay, so self-proclaimed Satan worshiper. He says "Hail Satan," and it's no shock that these people don't understand because they didn't pick up a Bible. They don't know. And this is interesting that these children, or I call them children because they're just, it's just sad. They act like they're children and they just don't know. These college students who are laying down on the ground. They've got these signs. It's in the Bone Student Center. I don't know if you guys missed that, but anyway, I could go on, but I bring this up because it's important to know that Paul Kessler is not going to be the only one. We actually had a TPUSA staffer here in Illinois. He was in, oh gosh, I don't know where he was at. I think it was Skokie, Illinois. I have to double check that, but it was up north. And this TPUSA staffer was actually beat by pro-Palestinian protesters with flagpoles and He was just walking, this TPUSA staffer, was just walking this elderly couple to their car because the elderly couple was terrified of the pro-Palestinian protesters who were outside of a synagogue where the synagogue was hosting a pro-Israel rally. So it's happening all around. Okay, so I've got to take a quick break, but I'm going to get into more of this story here on the other side. Paul Kessler, this Jewish man, he was hit in the head by this California professor. Now, the California professor's bail has been set at $1 million. There's more to it next. I don't know what you're referring to, Dan, but I'm pretty sure you're referring to the Paul Kessler story. Not true, NBC. So I didn't say MSNBC. I said NBC. Sorry if you were mistaken, but NBC, and I will pull it up right now. How they reported the Jewish man. um, and how they said man falls and hits his head or something to that effect. Okay. It was basically the same thing. I'm going to pull that up right now, share my screen with you to show you the headline because this is so, so important. And I want to take this opportunity to red pill you and to prove to you that the mainstream media, they are hacky and they were trying to conceal the fact that this man, Paul Kessler, had actually uh, been hit in the head with a megaphone. Okay, they were trying to gloss over that, and I'm pretty sure NBC was also the same publication that when Daryl Brooks ran his SUV into a parade. Hey, good morning, folks. So sorry. Talking over the commercials. No, so I'm gonna come back. I've got some commenters and they say, hey, NBC didn't cover the story that way. NBC did cover Paul Kessler's story. They did not give him any kind of justice. That's next on the other side. Okay. So I am going to be looking this up. NBC, their headline here. Now this happened a little while ago, so I got to dig into my show prep here and try to find it. But yes, Dan, I said NBC, not MSNB, first of all. Second of all, yeah, they report this stuff, and NBC, I believe, was uh, the ones who also with Daryl Brooks, they said the SUV killed all those people. SUV runs into people as if it was like some sort of self-driving car or something. No, man uses SUV to mow down people in a Christmas parade would be more accurate. So we're going to find that NBC headline. I'll be right back. Okay, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Yes, thanks for letting me know I was on air. I forgot to hit my button. I appreciate it, Tiffany. Yeah, it's Friday. Okay, what can I say? So Dan provides this article. I don't know what it says. It says no arrest made. Okay, here is what I've got, Dan. Okay, so Dan, you say MSNBC didn't report it that way. Not at all, young lady. This is, and I'm going to share it with you, what happened when he actually died. So, man dies after hitting head during Israel and Palestinian rallies in California, officials say. So, that's the headline. Okay. So, when you see this headline, you are to assume that he hit his head, that he hit his head. He died hitting his head. No, he was hit on the head with a megaphone. This is deliberately misleading. And I've got some more if you want to look at CNN's reporting of it. Arrest made in the death of a Jewish protester who fell and hit his head. Okay. These are deplorable headlines. Arrest made in the death of a Jewish protester who fell and hit his head. He did not fall and hit his head. This is disgusting. This is truly, and if you are not awake yet, you need to wake up. The mainstream media is truly disturbed. This guy did not fall and hit his head. He did not hit his head. Somebody hit his head. Okay. He didn't hit his head. Somebody hit him in the head. Okay. So that is the big gripe I have. And to sit there and just, I don't know what this link is. I can't go to it right now, but um, yeah. To say that that doesn't happen and that the media doesn't report it that way, that's just not true, Dan. And I just provided you CNN and NBC. I don't know how MSNBC covered it, specifically MSNBC, but I said NBC. Um, now, I mean, but it's all mainstream. I mean, it's NBC. I just showed you another one from CNN. This is truly deeply disturbing. And let's compare this one actually. So let's do this. I'm going to share this again with you. This is how they covered the Palestinian American boy who was killed in an anti Muslim attack in Illinois. Okay. So that's how they covered that story. Okay. Notice the difference here. There's the Palestinian story, and then I will show you the other headline. This is the Jewish man dying. Okay. Do you see now? Smash the like button if you see the propaganda that's been going on here. All right. When we come back, I've got so much to get to today. It's Friday. I do want to continue talking a little bit about this Jewish man, Paul Kessler, who's hit on the head when counter protesting a pro Palestinian demonstration. Um, He was hit in the head, with a megaphone, and now a guy has been arrested. He is a California professor, and he was a faculty advisor for this Muslim, student association. He was a Muslim computer science professor, and he taught at at a university in California. Now he is looking at involuntary manslaughter charges. No, I manslaughter, implies that there was no intent. When you hit somebody over the head with a megaphone, I would say that there's probably intent there. Yes? Um, it's just wild. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz Friday, and Dan, he's in on the YouTube stream. You guys can go there. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. I'm live streaming. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's Cat Peterson and 929. Cat Peterson 929. So check it out. do want to read this comment. Now, I did say NBC, not MSNBC, but he said that's not how MSNBC reports it. Not at all, young lady. Okay, so I was telling y'all about the a Jewish man, Paul Kessler, and I told you guys about the NBC headline that was deeply disturbing. And I don't understand what was with this headline. And in fact, I actually do know what was with this headline. They're trying to propagandize and they do not cover things fairly or in any kind of balanced way. So, NBC, here's the headline that came out when Paul Kessler died. They said man dies after hitting head during Israel and Palestinian rallies in California, officials say. So that's the headline that came out. Man dies after hitting head, as if he hit his head on his own. They did not mention that he was clubbed over the head with a megaphone from a pro-Palestinian protester who has now been arrested. He was a California professor and he was a faculty advisor for the Muslim Student Association, and his son is actually the officer of that same association. He's been known to be in multiple Islam groups. He has in the past expressed support for Hamas terrorists on his social media account. And that shouldn't shock you because the Palestinian people will try to tell you that the Palestinians and the Hamas, it's totally different. It's not because the Palestinian people elected and put into charge Hamas. They had a say in who got to be in charge, okay, and it was Hamas. The California professor, his name is El Naji. I'm going to butcher his name. It's Loyer El Naji, and he was arrested yesterday morning in connection with the death of Paul Kessler. He clubbed him over the head, allegedly with a megaphone. Then he falls to the ground and he lies down on the sidewalk in a pool of his own blood, and he was rushed to the hospital. So NBC at the time when he died, they said man dies after hitting head. He didn't hit his head; he was hit over the head with a megaphone. Compare that story. I'm just going to share it here with you. This headline, compare that headline to the headline that of the Palestinian American boy here in Illinois. Actually, this was in Plainfield, Illinois. 6-year-old Palestinian American boy is killed in an anti Muslim attack in Illinois, authorities say. So, this is complete. Notice the difference here. NBC is an enemy of America and its allies, and this cannot go on. NBC, they deliberately reported this in a false way. This is the same publication where Daryl Brooks mowed down all of those people in a Christmas parade. They said that the SUV ran into all of the people. SUV hits Christmas parade attendees or something like that. That's what their headline was at the time. I've got receipts, and I'm sorry, Jan, but you're wrong. NBC, NBC, or MSNBC, and I'll even share CNN's headline with you this morning. It talks about the arrest. So my headline for you this morning, I'm just going to compare and contrast here. My headline about this story this morning was a man has been arrested in connection with the death of a Jewish man, Paul Kessler, who was hit on the head while counter protesting at a pro-Palestinian demonstration. Okay, that was what I read to you this morning. Paul Kessler, he was hit on the head, in the back of the head, actually, with the megaphone. Okay, and I was very clear about this story. And here's CNN's headline, okay, this morning. Arrest made in death of Jewish protester who fell and hit his head. This headline is absolutely revolting from CNN, and they try to spin the reality of what actually happened. The Jewish protester did not fall and hit his head. That is not how he died. He was clubbed in the head with a megaphone. There's video footage of this. We know this to be true. And now he's been arrested. And I'm taking issue with the charges, actually. So the charges are involuntary manslaughter charges. So that implies that there was no intent. And I don't know about you, but if you take a megaphone and club somebody over the head, I think there's some intent there, no? Anyway, so the guy's bail, the California professor, this leftist professor out of California, his bail has been set at $1 million. So yeah, that's that story. I do want to shift gears, move on. the ballot fraud. I got to get to this morning. Man told NBC Boston that he went to go vote in person at his local polling location in Lawrence, Massachusetts. So this story is out of Massachusetts. So when he checked his ring door, and well, he was told that he had already voted. So he went to go vote in person, and then they said, "Well, sir, you already voted." He goes, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa! Wait a second! I already voted." No, I didn't. So then guy goes home and he checks out his Ring door cam footage. And it turns out he saw a woman appear to lift his ballot out of his mailbox. She took the ballot out of his mailbox, walked away. So he contacted the police. Mail-in ballots, they are a complete fraud, and we all know it. But you'll only hear about it when Democrats, you know, you'll only hear about it when it's Democrats cheating other Democrats. Okay, you're not going to hear about it, ballot fraud, if it's Democrats cheating other Democrats. So let's take a listen here to the local news footage or local news story about this. Here we go.
Local officials are looking into allegations of attempted voter fraud in Lawrence, and we've exclusively obtained video footage from a Lawrence man's home appearing to show a woman removing ballots from his mailbox.
NBC 10's Darren Botello spoke with Secretary of State Bill Galvin about all of this. Darren, what did he have to say?
Well, right now, there are 2 police reports alleging voter fraud in Lawrence at this time, and there could be more on the way. We are told that there is an investigation going on at both the state and local level. And one man tells us he actually caught a woman on camera going into his mailbox, stealing ballots. This is the Ring camera video appearing to show a woman taking out 3 ballots from a Lawrence man's mailbox. This is the man who didn't want to be identified, but says he went to go vote in person on Election Day last week and was told, according to the list, he already voted. That's when he checked his camera footage and then contacted police. The Essex County District Attorney's Office and Secretary of State, William Galvin, are now looking into any allegations of potential voter fraud.
We're going to get all the ballots out of Lawrence. We're going to get all the mail-in ballots, and we're going to review everything and all the provisionals and reconcile the lists. And if further investigation contacting some of the people who allegedly voted by mail needs to be done, we will do it.
There are 2 reports of potential voter fraud or stolen ballots right now in Lawrence.
There may be more. It's premature to say how many.
The second report filed was from this Lawrence woman who's still waiting for elections officials to decide whether her in-person vote will count or the mail-in, which she says has her signature forged.
How come it's not going to be counted if I'm voting right in front of you and I'm telling you that that vote that you have there is not mine?
State elections officials are now sorting through these allegations, and we're told the results would be delivered before the candidates begin their new terms in January.
We're on it. The minute we heard.
So, yes, there's voter fraud. And folks, I think the only reason why we're hearing about this is because this was an instance where Democrats were cheating other Democrats. Cheating is the only way Democrats win. And I don't care what this official out of Massachusetts says. I don't believe anything is going to be done about this. I really don't. Elections are the most important aspect of maintaining our republic. Ballot fraud is unacceptable and should be thoroughly investigated, regardless of political affiliation. Okay, we absolutely need to get rid of mail-in ballots, and we need to enforce a strict voter ID policy immediately to protect our fair and democratic elections. And everybody, local level, state level, it doesn't matter. Everybody should be advocating against mail-in ballots so things like this don't happen. Watch 2000 Mules. Look what happened there with the ballot harvesting. This is terrible. And anyone who disagrees with me that mail-in ballots are great, you're a cheater. You're a cheater. Mail-in ballots are not great. This is example number 1. How you can steal an election using mail-in ballots. They're a total fraud, and we all know it. And if you disagree with me, then you're a cheater. All right, do want to switch gears up here a little bit. I do want to talk about scientists and how they want to label meat with a cigarette-style warning about climate change. So I guess eating meat is very bad for the climate, according to the leftists. And now they want to slap a cigarette-style warning label on meat about climate change and how meat affects the climate. Yes. So we're going to chat about that. Plus, I saw that this morning, Petgrave, that's his name, Matt Petgrave, and he's a hockey player. He's a hockey defenseman, and his skate actually slit the throat of Adam Johnson, slit his neck, practically almost beheaded the poor man on October 28th. It was a game in England, and it led to Adam Johnson dying. So this guy, Matt, he actually gets a standing ovation during the team's first home game back since Adam Johnson died. Adam Johnson died at the age of 29. It was tragic. I listened to the eulogy that was given by the fiance. I just completely crushing the story. And shame on the people who stood up and applauded this guy. I'm not saying that the guy did this intentionally. I'm not saying that it was, he woke up that day and he was going to go kill somebody. No. Right now I'm going to call it an incident. But it doesn't look good, and at the end of the day, Matt Petgrave, he killed somebody. Okay? At the end of the day, Adam Johnson is dead. And to stand up and to applaud this guy, whether it was intentional or not, it's disturbing. And there's a propaganda there's propaganda being pushed out there to pretty much run like defense for Matt Petgrave, and I don't know why, but we're gonna get to the bottom of it here on the Buzz in just a little bit. 15 minutes. I'll be back in about 5 minutes. But we're gonna get to the Matt Petgrave story in about 15 minutes. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. We've got so much. 309-451-9299. You can go ahead and text me. We're back next. Yes, Dan, I agree that people should read the articles and not just the headline, but you have to understand, like, this is what makes me so upset. You have to understand that these people, and I've gone to journalism school. Okay, there is a headline writing class that they make you go to, and it's supposed to really get people to click on the article. Okay, um, now what they're doing here, they know that people just read the headlines. Okay, they know that, and they're running a propaganda. Like, this is so disturbing. This is an atrocious headline. Arrest made in death of Jewish protester who fell and hit his head. Okay, Dan, you're busy. I'm busy. Everybody's busy. People read headlines only. And if you want to write a good headline, you have to be as accurate as possible. So sitting there and saying in this headline, and I'm just going to share the evidence with you one more time, writing this headline, whoever wrote this headline needs to be fired. Okay, needs to be fired, needs to be canned because it's not correct and it's misleading. And they know that people only read headlines because guess what, Dan? Everybody's busy and the headline is supposed to be accurate. Okay. Not everybody goes in and clicks in on the article, but that doesn't excuse fell and hit his head. I mean, this is awful. This is spinning reality. What would have taken to just say Jewish protester hit over the head and arrest has been made? Nothing. Hit over the head with a megaphone. Arrest has been made. I mean, what? I can't even argue. I just don't even understand. How could you're still sticking up for these people? Still sticking up for these people when they deliberately lied in a headline. And I proved that to you. There's video footage of the guy clubbing the guy with a megaphone. And he was an elderly man. He was Jewish. And then I shared with you NBC how they deliberately flipped. I mean, notice the difference in this other headline. Okay, let's share this. I'm going to share this headline with you. 6-year-old Palestinian American boy is killed in an anti-Muslim attack in Illinois. Okay, accurate. Okay, the stabbing of a mother and his son, them being Muslim, and the ongoing Middle Eastern conflict involving Hamas and the Israelis. That's what the sheriff's office said was the motive for the stabbing. Okay, that's an accurate headline. If the sheriff's office said that was the motive, and it was an anti-Muslim attack in Illinois, then this is an accurate headline. This is not man dies hitting head during Israel and Palestinian rallies in California. He didn't die after hitting his head. He was hit in the head. And to try to run interference for these people or try to defend these people, it's disturbing. It's truly disturbing, and I'm disappointed, Dan. I'm really disappointed that people would still, after I show you all of the evidence, you would still stick up for these people, and that just goes to show you that you are manipulated. They have manipulated you, and they have not only just manipulated you, but they've created you into an advocate for them. Do you work for NBC? Do you work for CNN? No? Then why are you defending them so hard? I mean, come on. I like, yes, I do believe that people should read the article and not just headlines. But the reason why I believe that is because I know that the headlines are garbage and they lie. Okay. So people shouldn't, but they shouldn't. But that doesn't excuse the behavior of them writing the headline. That's still wrong. All right. I do have to tell you a little bit about Matt Petgrave, this hockey defenseman. He slit the throat of this guy. And yes, it's a black man who slit the throat of Adam Johnson during this hockey game. And yes, I do think that they're running propaganda because, God forbid, there be a white man who falls victim to a black man in England. Okay, so this is a story out of England. And it's just disturbing that we had 8,000 people stand up and cheer for a man who killed somebody. Okay, there's still an investigation going on. He was arrested, hasn't been convicted yet, but I'm sure they're going to convict him of some kind of manslaughter. This Matt Petgrave, manslaughter implies that there was no intent there. And look, I don't think that he woke up that morning and said, you know what, I'm going to go kill Adam Johnson today. What I am saying is that the guy was known to play rough. Matt Petgrave had probably, if not the most, a lot of penalties, and had more than anybody else in that arena that night. And he plays rough, and I think that he was known to do this kicking tactic, which I don't understand why you would kick at all in hockey. And I'm not a watcher of hockey, but it seems odd, right? Why would you kick at all in hockey? Soccer, sure. Kicking somebody in the shin happened to me when I played, but I don't know why you would kick in hockey. But he was known to do that. He was a tough player, obviously. We have a record of all kinds of penalties that he was given in the game. So that needs to be noted, and I hope the authorities, take that into consideration when convicting this guy and when bringing charges against him. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. I'm getting a little heated because we've got people on the text line 309-451-9299. We've also got people on the YouTube stream. He says people have to read the articles, not just the headlines. Look, I'm not going to defend NBC. I'm not going to defend CNN. I don't work for them, and I certainly don't think it's my responsibility to defend them. It might be for you, texter, listener, but it's not my job to defend these clowns when they deliberately lie in their headlines. And it's not really my job to go click onto the article. Yes, it should be. If you are a good consumer of news, you would click into the article and then actually read the article. Um, but they know that people don't do that. They know that people are busy, and that doesn't excuse their behavior. It doesn't excuse that they outright lied in this headline. So here's a headline from CNN this morning. Arrest made in death of Jewish protester who fell and hit his head. Well, that's not what happened. The Jewish protester was clubbed in the head with a megaphone, and they arrested a California professor who had known ties to radical Islamic groups and was the Muslim Student Association faculty advisor at this university in California. So what they could have wrote, and I'm just going to rewrite this headline right now: Jewish protester clubbed in head by microphone or by megaphone, and arrest has been made. I mean, it's a better headline, it's more accurate, and it would have taken no work at all to write that headline. And this Cindy woman, who writes for CNN, she should be fired because this is deliberately misleading and it's spinning the reality of what happened, and it's truly revolting. Um, and I'm not going to not going to run interference. Um, here's a better headline: elderly Jewish man killed after being struck by pro-Palestinian protester in altercation at rally. I mean, that's the post millennial headline this morning. So, or the that's actually Daily Mail. Elderly Jewish man killed after being struck in the head by a pro-Palestinian protester. Like that's that's a good headline. I mean, yeah, it's just it's sad. All right, I do have to switch gears. Let's talk about scientists and how they want to have labels on meat now. Uh, and it's a cigarette style label, like it's a cigarette style warning label about climate change and how if you eat meat, you're contributing to climate change. I also need to talk about Matt Petgrave. Now, Matt Petgrave was a or is a hockey defenseman, and he kicked Adam Johnson in the throat and in the neck and slit his throat, and Adam Johnson died in this October 28th game in England. And Matt Petgrave just received a standing ovation. Yes, the killer. He received a standing ovation during his team's first home game back since Johnson died at the age of 29. Look, I'm not saying that Matt Petgrave woke up that morning and said, you know what, I'm going to kill Adam Johnson. What I am saying is that it's deeply disturbing that at the end of the day, what Matt Petgrave did was kill a man, and he still received a standing ovation from thousands of people. That's disturbing. Do want to chat a little bit about Thanksgiving salad. We're going to hit this, and then in a few minutes, we're going to get into those two stories. But Thanksgiving salad. Most people don't think of salad when it comes to Thanksgiving side dish. Not a lot of people eat salad on Thanksgiving. But here's a reason to have one. Eating a few leafy greens, aside from being good for you, may actually help you consume more of the other dishes that you'd rather be eating. So, in an argument for adding salad to Thanksgiving, Eater, which is a magazine, suggests it might help cut through the richness of other high calorie dishes and may actually help you eat even more. A win win. So I don't know. There's something about leafy greens that kind of give you more room to eat the turkey, the mashed potatoes, the casseroles, right? These high calorie dishes that you might even want to eat. So win win. You get to eat more and you get some leafy greens, and those are actually good for you. So gotta take a break. It's Friday. We're going to come back. We've got those two stories to hit. Matt Petgrave, the hockey defenseman who killed Adam Johnson, and then allegedly he hasn't been convicted yet, I don't believe, but scientists want to label meat with a cigarette kind of style label, and they want to warn you against eating meat because it's bad for climate. That's next. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Yes, we were talking a little bit about Palestine, Palestinian protesters at Illinois State University's campus. I'm actually going to share Diane Benjamin. She's got BLN News. Smash the like button if you're watching, and smash the like button if you read Diane Benjamin's pieces. I'm going to share some of the pictures she shared on her blog post. So there you have it. Some ISU protesters. They are there in the Bone Student Center. This was at the Obama Legacy Dinner, and this is a legacy dinner that Democrats go to annually. And this is Crystal Label's post. She says people from the community, including students, demonstrated at the Obama Legacy Dinner for a free Palestine, which is so funny because I mean this implies that Palestine is an actual country and it's not. And a ceasefire. So in order to okay, their demand was that Democrats come out and see them. Only a few of us did. So this implies that Crystal Abel is super pro-Palestine, pro-Palestine, right? And that she's upset with the other Democrats that did not come out and see the protesters. So 25 News, they picked up the story, and I mean, they crashed this legacy dinner, and um, they quoted the McLean County Democrat chair, Patrick Cortese, and he said that he supported the protesters' right to protest, but he also didn't feel that the party should take a stand, the McLean County Democrat Party. Um, and I mean, I just love it when the left eat their own. um, but yeah, that they also said, that it's, you know, sad and everything, but it really doesn't have anything to do with the municipal or with the local people, so let me look for that quote. I wouldn't say that we're necessarily sympathetic. It's an issue that's an international issue. I don't think it's something that we as a country or as a county party should be diving into at this point. So he said that they tend to focus on municipal, state, and congressional elections, not foreign policy. So the disturbing thing about this statement that Patrick Cortese gave to 25 News, they're not going to take a stance on this international issue. It's an international issue with real local effects, okay? And we've seen that there were actually hostages that came back from Israel to Illinois. We also saw the Palestinian boy. I just read that headline from NBC where he was attacked in this anti-Muslim attack. He was 6 years old. There was a stabbing. The landlord, I guess, stabbed he and his mother or something like that. Then I told you about the TPUSA, Peter Christos. He was a TPUSA staffer, and he was walking this elderly couple to the car, and he was beaten with some poles and with some flag poles, and that was in Skokie, I believe, Illinois, Skokie, Illinois. So, yeah, when you say that you're not going to take a stance on an international issue because you don't get into it, that's kind of a cop out, in my opinion. I'm sorry, Patrick, because believe it or not, international issues affect people at the local level. I mean, we've already seen somebody from Illinois be killed because of this conflict. And then we also saw Peter Christos be attacked and beaten with poles coming from a pro-Israel rally when he was walking this Jewish couple to their cars. So there is local issues when it comes to this. And here's the thing, you know, uh, Sorensen, Sharon Chung, they talk about international issues all of the time. All of the time. I know Sharon Chung was on the campaign trail talking about how big oil needs to be taken down, and that's how they're going to get the gas prices to come down. Eric Swanson, he's constantly on his Twitter page talking about national issues and international issues all of the time. And we should be getting our Congressman Eric Sorensen to not send money over to these Arab nations, to stop sending money to Iran. Uh, and, you know, we find out that Iran and a lot of these Arab nations will turn around and try to take over Israel. There are real local effects. And I think that he, as a McLean County chair, um, to not take an issue or stance on it at all is disturbing. You know, and I kind of agree to an extent, right? I mean, what does the McLean County Democrat Party have to do with, you know, Hamas uh, and, beheading children over in the Middle East? Um, One, it has everything to do with the Bible and prophecy and the destruction of Israel. It's all very prophetic. Um, but two, um, I there is local issues that come from what's going on over in the Middle East, okay? So the turmoil oil over there it's very important to this country. Um, so I'm back next talking a little bit about that. Woohoo! Good morning. It's Friday. Joe Biden, he mumbled his way through this Apec conference with his BFF, Xi Jinping. There were a few things they talked about. I will be talking about that in the 8 o'clock hour. We'll also visit with Chuck Erickson because the McLean County Board meeting was last night, and the Fridays after the McLean County Board meeting, we talk with Chuck Erickson, so he'll be joining me in the 8 o'clock hour. I do want to talk about this meat. Scientists, they want to label meat with a cigarette-style warning label, and this warning label is going to warn you that eating meat is bad for the climate. Okay, so liberals, they are very miserable people. They're just terrible. And this is backed by data. But some researchers, they say that the people on the left, they actually suffer from something called maladaptive maladaptive sadness. So look that up, which I mean, it's basically it's an ineffective way of dealing with stress, coping with stress. Leftists have a hard time dealing with stress. They have a hard time taking accountability, and this leads to them wanting to be miserable people and being constantly sad. They tend to have this everything's a everything is a catastrophe mentality about everything, and it's because they have an ineffective way of dealing with stress. They're not accountable people. People who are leftists, they suffer from this maladaptive sadness. Look that up in your spare time. But if it were up to progressives, and you and I both know this, we'd be living very, very, very miserable lives because instead of homes, they want us to be living in these little pods. They want us to own nothing and to be happy. They also want all of our holidays to be canceled. The list goes on. They don't want us to be happy because they're very miserable people, and it's because they suffer from this ineffective. They have an ineffective way of coping with stress, and they don't take accountability for their actions, and they think everything is on fire. And they have this everything is a catastrophe mentality. But the left has increased its war on meat now, and at great levels because now they're attempting to further stigmatize meat-based diets as socially unacceptable. Okay, that's what the left is trying to do. They're trying to say it's socially unacceptable, and I fell victim to this actually. So I was a vegetarian for 2 years. Through college. And why? I don't know. I think I was just trying to fit in. A lot of my college friends were vegetarians and they we're like, "Oh, it's so much healthier for you." I don't think so. So me personally, when I was a vegetarian for those 2 years, I was 20 pounds overweight. I lost 20 pounds after I started eating meat again. I also had issues with kidneys. I'm just going to be honest with you because we're friends. I had some issue with kidney health. And kidney stones, right? If you've ever had them, they're terrible. I was in and out of the hospital trying, these kidney stones were terrible. And as soon as I started eating meat, I lost all of the weight. And then no more kidney issues. I'm just going to be honest with you. That's what happened to me. Not to say that I have a best friend. She is a vegan and she's been vegan for 8 years, and she does it correctly, right? And she really likes it. I'm not. You can eat whatever you want, but to sit there and to try to tell people that eating meat is bad for you is grossly wrong. It is grossly it is just wrong. Okay, so over the last several years, climate activists have increasingly been claiming that meat poses an existential threat to the environment and that cows are especially accelerating climate change. Just cows existing. I don't know if it's their farts or what that are damaging to the climate, but they claim that having a lot of cows in the fields are damaging to the climate. So anti-meat scientists now, they are proposing that there be government mandated caution labels on the packaging for meat that could read, warning, eating meat contributes to climate change. So, so it's like a cigarette style label that they want to slap on your beef or your steak. So the scientists who want you to believe that meat consumption is detrimental to the environment, they are the same scientists that say that eating meat is detrimental to your health. And as I just told you, in my real life experience, that's not true. When I stopped eating meat, that was detrimental to my health, I believe now. And, I never had a doctor. I would go to the doctor. I told them I was vegetarian, but they never suggested a change in diet. Because I truly do believe that the medical industry is pushing the same propaganda that these climate alarmists are, and it's unfortunate because I had to go through 2 years of of hell, right? And I was overweight, and it was not. I mean, I was eating too many carbs. That's what it was. I was eating too many carbs. I didn't have a balanced diet, and I wasn't doing it correctly. I think there's a way to do vegetarianism right or veganism correctly. I just wasn't doing it correctly. But anyway, so I digress. In other words, there's a war on meat, and it's necessary to have this war on meat to save the planet, according to these scientists. A lot of people won't give up something just because it's bad for their health. Although meat is actually very good for you, I don't think that this label is going to do anything. Okay, if they say, "Oh, it's bad for you, it's bad for the environment," meat is bad for the environment. I don't think a lot of people would give up. I mean, is a label on the meat that says that eating meat contributes to climate change, is that really going to affect your digestion of meat? Probably not. But the left is going to try to gaslight you and gaslight the masses into doing not just this for your health, but they're going to try to convince you that this is for the health of generations to come. Okay, so there's been people who say, "Oh yeah, meat's bad for your health," blah blah blah, and you need to change your lifestyle and do something good for your health. But there's a lot of people out there who do bad things for their health. People will say, "Oh, cigarettes are bad for your health," but people still smoke. Now, what the left is trying to do, they're trying to gaslight the masses into believing that this is not only about your health, but it's about the health of everybody else to come, generations to come. In other words, you have no choice but to give up meat since the lives of your children and grandchildren depend on it. Okay. So, of course, most people listening to this show, you guys are pretty much any climate prediction the left has made up. We have seen that has not come true. And you and I both understand, and people listening to this show, you probably understand that the Bible says, and I believe this, the Bible says that this earth will be destroyed. Read Revelations. I mean, there will be giant hailstorms that come during the tribulation, right? So I have no issue with the tribulation, with the earth passing away, because we're going to get a new heaven and a new earth, and I'm totally cool with that. So I'm all right with it. I know that the earth is going to go up into flames because that's what the Bible tells us. That's prophecy. I'm not going to fight God's prophecy. So of course, most people listening to this show, we know that climate predictions that the left make up, they never actually come true. And we know that if the world does blow up, that hey, or if the world does go up into flames, it's because it's prophecy, and there's nothing that we can do to stop that or change it. That the earth will pass. So, of course, this has prompted scientists to advocate for government mandated climate change warning labels on the meat. Um, Here's what Jack Hughes has to say about this. All warning labels, this was a research that they did out of the university. Durham University in the UK, they took 1,000 adults and they split them into several different groups. And they found that the people who saw the graphic image alongside or on the meat packages that said, "Hey, this contributes to climate change," um, that changed people's selection by up to 10%. 10% of people did not select the meat package that had the label on it. However, people most in favor of climate change warning labels, which they also found to be the most credible, and according to the study. So, um, yeah, they found people in this study. I mean, it was just kind of a weird study because they included people who are climate believer or climate alarmists, and those climate alarmists took part in this study, and they found that the climate alarmists didn't want the meat that had the warning label on it. So I don't know. It's not really all that great of a study, but of course, this prompted scientists to advocate for government mandated climate change warning labels on meat because they found that 10% of people actually chose the meat that didn't have the warning label on it. So they think that warning labels work. And Jack Hughes, the guy, the lead author in this study, he said that reaching net zero is priority for the nation and for the planet. That is never going to happen. Net zero carbon emissions is never going to happen because it's impossible. You want to know why it's impossible? We breathe out carbon. Okay, so net zero, if you do zero carbon, like we breathe out carbon. What do you mean there's not going to be any carbon? Net zero, which when they think that, it'll balance it out. I don't know. It's just overwhelming the amount of evidence that's impossible to replicate the nutritional characteristics of meat. Okay, there's nothing out there that can replace meat. Okay, the meatless diets, they are far more likely to lead to nutrient deficiencies. And despite all that, researchers are trying to justify their anti-meat stance by gaslighting the masses and trying to convince you that if you eat meat, then that's going to kill the generations to come. So basically, the research showed that adding this graphic, it looks like a cigarette style graphic. It's a warning label to these meat based products had a significant impact on people's decisions to choose them. But like I said, that study was a bunch of climate alarmists who actually cared about the climate. I don't think that a warning label is going to really do much for you and me because we're not climate alarmists. So yeah, I don't know. This is a crazy story, and the climate alarmists they believe in the ultimate form of racism because they hate the human race. Everything they advocate for not only makes our lives miserable, but also unhealthy. And they even go as far as to advocate for things like population control. Okay. I'm not on this anti-meat bandwagon. I've got to take a quick break. But when we come back, I'm going to dive into the story about Matt Petgrave. He's this hockey defenseman. He slit the throat of Adam Johnson. It's all caught on video. And then Matt Petgrave recently just got a standing ovation because his team's first home game back since Adam Johnson's death. He got a standing ovation. And I just find that deeply disturbing. I think that that's odd that 8,000 or so people stood up and cheered for this guy. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz, Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. It's Friday morning, 7:53, and before we took the break, I was telling you guys a little bit about Matt Petgrave, and I want to get to the story before we get to Chuck Erickson. So he is a hockey defenseman. Full disclosure, I don't watch hockey. I don't watch sports. I watch a little bit of racing. I should say that. I do watch a little bit of racing, but last time I checked, kicking is not a thing in hockey, but Matt Petgrave did it with his skate on, and he kicked Adam Johnson in the neck and slit his throat during an October 28th game in England. And there's video footage of this. Okay, so he died. Adam Johnson died, and get this: Matt Petgrave actually received a standing ovation during the team's first home game back since Johnson died at the age of 29. It's truly sad. I mean, Johnson, his fiance, eulogized him, and it jerked me to tears. It was so tragic. Now, the police arrested a man in connection with Johnson's death, although on suspicion of manslaughter. Okay, so his identity was concealed and it was not revealed to the people. Okay, so the headlines were a man was arrested in connection with Johnson's death. This was, in fact, the guy on video who was seen slicing his throat with the skate. So they concealed his identity for quite some time. They didn't reveal the man's identity, but there was a video, guys, of Matt Petgrave, this black man, who was slicing the throat of this Adam Johnson, who was white. And I mean, this guy, Matt Petgrave, has been known to have plenty of penalties, like, if not the most in hockey, a lot. He might have the most. I've got to double check that. But over 8,000 fans actually stood to their feet in this first home came back since Johnson's death. They stood to their feet and they gave this guy a standing ovation. Don't believe me? Just watch and listen. Probably, I don't know, like 8,000 or so people stood up and gave this guy a standing ovation. So this guy didn't even show up at the game, but his picture was uh, they they this was the Sheffield Steelers defenseman Matt Petgrave, who wasn't on the ice, but he did have his picture go up on the screen, and then when his picture went up on the screen, people stood up and hooted, hollered for this guy. Now, do I think that Matt Petgrave woke up one morning and said, "You know what? I'm gonna murder someone today"? Absolutely not. I don't think so. I do know that this guy played tough and he was reckless and he wound up killing somebody. Okay, this guy was way too tough on the ice. He had plenty of penalties, if not the most. And out of the entire like league, I don't know how they do it there in the UK or whatever, but he had a lot of penalties. Okay, and he killed somebody. I think it was reckless. And I know that there's just propaganda overload when it comes to okay, the way the media reports it. Uh, they almost they almost act like Matt Petgrave is the victim. They don't talk about Adam. They don't talk about him as if he's the victim. And I really do think that this is a race thing. Matt is black and Adam is white. And God forbid, I think that there's some sort of turning going on in the nation and in the world, where God forbid we we victimize or we give a victim status to somebody who is white and male. And this is we somehow made it a point, and we're determined. The media is determined to make Matt out to be the victim, or at least his teammate, 100%. Because on Twitter he says the hate that Matt is receiving is terrible and completely uncalled for. Yeah, I don't know. He hasn't been convicted of manslaughter yet, but and when you watch the video, I don't know if it was intentional. I know for a fact this guy played rough, and I think that he deserved, not paid, but he definitely deserves he deserves jail. Okay, let's put it that way. He deserves jail. He deserves to sit in prison cell because he took a man's life. Okay, and whether that was on accident or on purpose, right now I'll say it was an accident or call it but we don't even know if it was an accident. And here's this guy is the teammate. He's playing defense for this guy. And I don't know why. And I don't know why 8,000 people stood up and clapped for a man who ultimately at the end of the day, Adam Johnson was killed by Matt. Got to talk a little bit more about this on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. Chuck Erickson joining me in the 8 o'clock hour. Blood isn't poison, dude. Dan, buddy, you gotta relax. With population control include making sure our blood isn't poisoned by those immigrants. I don't know. Um, Now, I've said this before. Borders aren't just physical borders. Okay, there is a clear distinction between America and China. Okay, China values different things. America when you go to China, you wouldn't expect them to bend to your cultural norms, to uh, we wouldn't expect China to implement some sort of second amendment. Okay, so that's a cultural staple we have here in America. People go out to range. Okay, we have things like that's a cultural staple here in America. Okay, now if you go to China and if you try to go hunt things with a gun, or if you own guns, you will be killed probably on sight. So there's cultural norms that you are to follow if you are an American. Okay, here in America, we don't believe in forced labor. We also don't believe in population control, killing Chinese babies, or second-born daughters. And I know somebody who adopted Chinese children, okay, and they're girls, and the reason why they were adopted was because the parent who adopted them was trying to avoid them dying. Okay, so people go over to Russia, to China to adopt these children because otherwise they'll die because the government will kill them in order to control the population. Okay. Um, Now, there's nothing wrong with saying you don't want their cultural norms to poison the norms that we have. Okay, Chinese people, or Russian people, some, not all, I'm not gonna say not all. I know plenty of Chinese people who come over to America and they like our cultural norms and they want to adapt to America and participate in those cultural norms because their country sucks. Okay. Um, there's nothing wrong with saying, "Hey, I don't want immigrants coming over to America and implementing things from their culture and from their country here in America and practicing their culture here." There's nothing wrong with saying that borders are not only physical for national security reasons, but also and for distinction of what countries there. But also, it's a line, and it says, "Hey, here in America, we have the Second Amendment. We fly the flag. We respect the people who died for our freedom. Um, we respect our veterans, um, and we like our cheeseburgers. Okay, and you're not taking more. You're not taking away the meat. You're not taking away the guns. You're not doing. You're not taking away the country music. Your Korean pop. You can listen to that sure. And if you're in America, yeah, you're allowed to listen to it, but you're not going to force it on people here in America. That's not right, and I don't know if answering that's answering your question, um, or what, but with population control, making sure. I mean, I'm not advocating for killing immigrants. I'm advocating that they stay in their own country. Well, I don't know where you're getting that from. I don't think anybody anywhere, Donald Trump and the like, I don't think anybody was advocating for them to die. And now, if they have to be held in mass detention centers until we can actually support them, sure, we can do Oh boy, cigars with Chuck Erickson.
The Chuck Erickson.
The Chuck Erickson. Good morning, Chuck. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. I'm so glad that you're in studio. We do this every Friday after the McLean County Board meetings, folks, to go over the McLean County Board meeting and have a cigar and talk about local government. Oh, very smoky room.
Smoke-filled room.
See me live in studio. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. We're there, and we do want you to text in your questions. So text in at 309-451-9299. Today, we're talking about property taxes, and I found this to be helpful, and I shared it out onto my Facebook page. Chuck Erickson helping people out, trying to explain, hey, this is how you file an appeal about your property taxes. So let's talk about property taxes first. Everybody opened up their property tax bill, and their jaws dropped. So explain why that happened. Why are the property taxes so high?
Because the values of homes in Bloomington Normal have gone up.
Okay.
That really is the reason. Now, not the same in all neighborhoods, but some neighborhoods got more of an increase, some neighborhoods got less. And some people would say their house didn't go up in value at all. But, and if you believe that, the proper course is to file an appeal.
Okay,
should.
so explain that.
Well,
What's
on the
that?
bottom of your assessment, it'll tell you how to file the appeal. So you really got to get the assessment notice out and just read it all the way to the bottom, and it'll give you the instructions on how to file the appeal. But at the hard date of November 27th, you have to file that appeal on or before November 27th. In my opinion, you ought to check comps out first before you file that appeal, so you feel comfortable what you're going in there with. Our assessor told us that, there's a 70% chance you might get some reduction. So it's probably worth your while to do so if you have the courage to do so. Get yourself some comps, 70% chance you might get some reduction, and you ought to aim for it.
So I know I was talking with a business owner, and he's got a few properties out in Leroy. And he was telling me a little bit about how, the county assessor, so we have a county assessor here.
Mm-hmm.
And he was kind of pissed off with the assessor because the assessor simply told him over the phone that, hey, there's really not much I can do because there's this little something called a state multiplier. And people were, upset about the state multiplier. And then, this business owner and Leroy resident, he looks at me and he says, what the hell is the point of having a county assessor if there's nothing he can do to actually assess the property the way it should be assessed and not do it by the edicts of the state, where the state forces you to have like some sort of multiplier that increases that value of the EAV or of your property, right?
Well, as I understood the assessor saying last night, that the assessor should do it, because if he doesn't do it, what the state will come in and do and charge you a higher assessment, just a flat higher assessment. So you really want the local assessor doing something, and you want the right to appeal it locally. You don't really want to have to go down to Springfield to appeal your property taxes. You can do it in McLean County, and there's a board of review, and you just go in there and you appeal it. That's what you have to do. I don't know how else to make it any simpler than that. But on the most recent ones that just came out, you have to do that by November 27th. The city of Bloomington, the Bloomington Township assessor just sent out his.
Let me ask you this. The Unit 5 tax referendum, is that going to be applied to this year's taxes? Like, is that rate already on there, that increase?
They should. I know they're getting ready to meet. I don't know exactly what their fiscal year is and their tax year. I know what the county is. We just did our budget last night. But yes, it could be in there. It's funny that the city of Unit 5, who told us we had to have a tax rate increase last year, or give them the authority to do a tax rate increase because they're going to shut down the schools, and everybody said, no, you don't even need that because homes are going up in value. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to get more taxes anyway. Mm-hmm. It turns out we were profits. We knew that. I don't know if we were profits. It was common sense that was going to happen. So, and it did happen. But now they're saying they may lower the rate a little bit, but they're still going to have the levy's still going to be probably a little higher. So.
That's
You know, I mean,
we
it
kind of
just,
overshot on that one. Now it's kind of looking really bad that we're going to be profiting off of people, but whatever.
well, you thought they were going to close your school, so and that's what they scared you with, and then they didn't close your school, and they were going to get more money anyway.
Yep.
So it was all smoke and mirrors. I mean, that's what they sold us last year. They didn't need it, but they were able to push it through.
Well, and I've been talking about property taxes a lot as a school. I mean, the spending per student is up in the this budget, or the school. I mean, the reading comprehension, math. I mean, their proficiency rates are down despite spending being up. So every time they say that more money equals better living, equals better outcomes, that's a flat out lie. And recently, Pontiac, and you're running for state representative at 88. I hope that you get there and you try to implement free choice school programs. They just took away the Invest in Kids Act. But if you look at Pontiac, which I think is in your
No, it's not. And I don't know if that's tip swords or
I think it's tip sword. Yeah, it's tip sword. But I was just with Mike Perkins in the Senate the other day, and he told me a little bit about the Pontiac position. People going to those schools, and they're spending a lot per student, and their enrollment is like 1,000 kids, and their reading comprehension sucks, and their math is even worse. And then you look at Unit 5, they're spending $13,000 per kid. And I mean, the kids can't read at grade level. I mean, there's like what, 30, and then they're like, oh, it went up this year. It went up by 2 points, dude. And then it's like, wait a second. It still sucks because only like 30% of them can read at grade level. So it's crazy. But
the only solution is to raise your taxes. That's it. That's all we can do. We raise your taxes, we can solve it all. And then they don't solve it, and they come back and say, well, we got to raise more. We got to keep spending on this till we fix it. Okay, well, pretty soon you won't have any money in your pocket.
Yeah. Well, and let's talk about the budget, the Clinton County. So, what are some of the highlights from the meeting?
Well, we had 4 to 5 people come and speak against the tax levy, which I am happy they did, because what happens in county government often is we don't hear from anybody until after we vote. Okay, it's nice to have people come in, and I don't think people understand the value of doing that. I mean, I know sometimes you don't get what you want, but there still is a value of letting your elected official know what you're thinking and how you might cast your vote if they don't listen to how you're thinking. And so people should do that, because I think you got to keep this more in a bigger picture. There will be a budget next November, and there'll be a tax issue next November, and we're going to be doing this all over again. I hope we get to talk about that a little bit. But last night, long story short, our budget was passed, and the levy was passed. 7 Republicans, including myself, voted against the tax levy. So that's what we did. I knew going into that meeting, from talking to members, that I did not have the vote to vote down the budget. We weren't going to be able to vote down the budget.
So if voting down the budget, that would mean that you guys could actually lower the rate. Now you guys kept the rate the same, but the state multiplier and these went up. But you guys could have actually, if you cut that budget, bring down that rate. Correct?
Yes. If we could have found places to take things out of the budget. Okay. Now, one thing I would not have agreed to take out of the budget was the increase in salaries for our sheriff's deputies and correctional officers. Well, they needed it.
Well, let me.
I'll argue with you on it. They needed it.
No, well, let me unpick this, because this is interesting, and I don't know if it affects the same thing. I had Sheriff Bentley on, and I was asking about his salary a little bit, because there is this new state law out there where the county sheriffs are not paid for by the county so much. It's only a portion of the county budget is dedicated, and you have to, because the state mandates that the county treasurer.
Well, the county sheriff is a constitutional officer. I mean, it's an officer created by the Constitution. So But we did have to raise. Look, Matt Lang came to us probably last spring. Told the Justice Committee and the Finance Committee, listen, I need more corrections. We have this big jail. It's sitting empty. We're having to send people up to other places. We got an empty jail, and we're sending people to other places to house them for us. And we're paying them for it, okay?
Mhm.
Well, you're going to have to make a decision. Do you want to keep doing that, or you want to bring in correctional officers? Well, it seems to me you ought to bring in correctional officers and then use our jail for when other counties need to house their prisoners, they can house them in the same county and pay us for that service. Okay.
Right. Yeah. So that's I'm talking about the sheriff's salary.
Right. But the correctional officers needed a pay raise, so did the deputies. I mean, just not just the sheriff. I mean, they all needed a pay raise. I mean, because you got to understand, under the deputies, the stress is that we had with all the defund the police movement and don't do this and you can't pay this, pay them this. Either police officers were leaving the job or they were going to places where they could get paid more. Okay. And, now that wasn't the entire reason, but I'm sure it was in my mind, it was a large portion of the reason. And we had to say, hey, we don't want the state of Illinois hiring away our officers or some county in Indiana or Missouri hiring away our officers. We got to keep them. And so we had to give them some more money.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just an unfortunate consequence of the, defund the police. Police are all bad. I mean, it wore down, and you reduced qualified immunity, and you did other things, and police officers said, "Why am I doing it?
Well,
why am I doing this?"
Yeah, and I wanted to get your reaction to this law because I didn't know, and I feel like not a lot of people know that the county sheriffs are no longer paid by the county. It's not, or a small portion of it, a third of it, of the sheriff's salary. I'm just talking about the sheriff's salary. Only a portion of it comes from the county budget because the sheriffs now they have to be paid 80% of what the state's attorney is. And now they're paid like the state's attorney. So the state's attorney is paid for via the state.
Yes.
And the state picks up 2/3 of that bill when it comes to the sheriff's salary.
Yes, and that's fine with me. I mean, I'm not opposed to that. I mean, but because you need good sheriffs. I mean, we got to have something to give people an incentive to do the job. But I think the larger picture in the budget last night was the tax levy. I mean, McLean County did keep its rate flat, but the levy went up, and that's going to create a tremendous hardship on people who are on fixed incomes, elderly homeowners, and just homeowners in general, because I got a lot of complaints from people saying, listen, this tax bill is outrageous. And I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, I know it is outrageous. Mine was outrageous. I had most people have an escrow account for homeowners insurance and taxes. And the bank will occasionally come to you from time to time saying, listen, we need more money to keep up with ongoing taxes. Okay.
Mhm.
I had to put $1,500 into that escrow to keep my home payment the same as it was last year. Okay. I had the ability to do it. Okay. A lot of homeowners don't have that ability to do it. So that's what people are complaining about. It's just like you just took my monthly payment and you raised it 25%, or you raised it, you know, you raised it by a huge amount. We'll just put it that way, okay? And so you raised it by 10% or whatever. And they're saying, listen, I simply cannot afford that. And so what the challenge became for the county was you have to go back in and have the budget looked at and reduce some of the budget to
They
make
didn't do that.
that levy, or the votes were there to do it. I mean, the 10 Democrats voted weren't going to do it. I knew that. And there were a couple Republicans that I knew were not going to do that either.
What, two?
Okay.
What two Republicans?
What's in the newspaper? I don't want to criticize my colleagues. I don't agree with them. I think it was the wrong approach. I think what we need to do going into the future, because this is going going to happen again. And I know this is the opposition I'll encounter on the county board. We need to push the budget up a month or two. Okay. Oh, we can't do that. Oh, the humanity. You know how it is. You change something. This was the way we've always done it. We can't change it. Well, our budget process starts in May when the finance committee sets forth a budget policy. And then the department heads meet with our county administrator, and the department heads, who are independently elected in McLean County, come to the county administrator and they say, we need this and we need this. And the county administrator might say, well, we can't give you all this because I've got to give this person this. And I can't do all that because I got to do this. And they hash it out and they come up with a budget. Okay. That budget is then, no county board member sees it. Okay. We don't know about it.
The
Okay.
finance committee.
Well, finance committee isn't even really dealing with the budget either. That's between the department heads and the county administrator to put together that budget. Finally, the budget then is presented to the county board in September for a vote. Well, our county budget this year triggered a truth and taxation hearing, which took place in October, which a lot of people are upset about the way it was advertised. Okay, it wasn't well known. And a few people showed up and complained about the taxes. Now, they came in and said, well, yeah, but the county oversight committees, the budget committees come in and they can look at each budget and say, hey, we need to take a little bit out here. We need to take a little bit out here. We take a little bit out here. I don't know that county board members have the expertise to be able to do that with not to make the cut that would have been required to get that levy. Okay. So what I would propose is that you move it up. If you know that there's going to be a truth in taxation hearing, it's going to result from your budget. The budget ought to be moved up into October, ought to be moved up in August or July. And the reason for that is because when we come into the final budget meeting in November, it's literally like we have a gun. You either pass this budget or the world's coming to an end.
With the government.
Yeah, I mean, the world's coming to an end, and we can't go back and look at it. I always love people, you tell somebody, what do you mean you can't go back and look at it? I have to go back and look at my budget every single day. I have to check it every single day. But you can't go back and look at yours?
Yep.
Okay, and now I would have prioritized things. I would have said, listen, some people need these pay raises. They just did. We were losing a lot of people down there at the county that private sector. We just were. Some of those employees were doing the job of two people. Okay, and so we had to get we had to give those people a pay raise. We just did. We were not competitive in our salary.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just was that way in county government. But ultimately, what we had to do was we could have looked for other places to find reductions. And to sit there and say, well, county board, you got it in September, come up with it by November. If you don't come up with it by November, the whole world's coming to an end. I mean, move it up a month or two, and we can vote, and we can say, listen, we don't like this budget. We want you to send it back. We want the department head to convene a meeting again with the county administrator and see if you can find more reduction, okay? And stop telling us, I know the opposition, I'm already going to get some of the county board members are, if I listen to me right now, oh my God, we've never done it that way. If we've never done it that way, we can't do it differently.
It's no different than what's going on at the national level with the continuing resolution, right? It's no different. They're like, oh, the government's going to shut down if we don't pass this continuing resolution, and this is not true. Like, what? Maybe a couple of people don't get paid for a little bit or whatever. I don't know what it would look like, but it's just like I don't understand. Everything is a catastrophe.
It is. I mean, it's like if you don't pass it, the world's coming to an end. You got to pass this tonight or else. I mean, But if we were to look at it and find some cuts, well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
That would help your constituents because they're freaking out. Here, let's put it this
like
way.
move the process up a month or so.
Did anyone come to the county board meeting and advocate for the tax
No, not that I can recall.
Well, there you have it. Well, we have to
Not one person.
we have to take a quick break. We're going to continue our conversation about the county budget because it's important. This stuff is important to you, Chuck Erickson. He's running in the State House District 88.
I hope we get to talk about that.
We are. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And I do want to really clarify something on the other side about the sheriff salary. Because I know I'm still on this because it's absurd to me that the state is paying the county sheriffs, and it never was that way. So we're back now. Oh man, cigars with Chuck Erickson Fridays after the McLean County Board meeting.
Smoke-filled room that we
Smoke-filled room.
broadcast from.
Yes, all transparency
All
here.
transparent, yes.
And what we want to do is talk a little bit about the county budget, because this is really important to folks. You know, people talk to me out in the community. I talked to a Leroy resident. He was peeved off, to put it lightly, about how he opened up his bill, and it's a lot more than it was in years past.
And I gave the example where I had to pay an extra $1,500 into my escrow account, so my mortgage payment wouldn't go up, and I can do that. A lot of people can't. Okay, because I don't like my payments to go up. I tend to be kind of crazy about that, so I'd always try to keep them flat.
Yeah.
Okay, but I had to pay more money in because the bank said, "Listen, you got to put more money into your escrow account to provide for increasing taxes." Okay. Now, everybody expects that their taxes are going to go up some. Okay. No one ever expects their taxes to be zero forever or at a low rate forever. But the increase this year was just a huge shock to a lot of people. And it's probably going to be the same next year. Right. And so the county's going to have to come up with something, I think, better than just this is the way we've always done it. That's what you get. I mean, it's just like,
this is the way we've always done it. We can't delay budgetary.
No, I'm just saying move it up a month or so. If we know that we have to reconvene a meeting of the department heads to go back and look at their budget because the county board thinks the EAV and all that stuff's going to be too much on the taxpayer, then send the budget back to the department heads and tell them to give us something else.
So the budget, it's passed. It's ready to go.
It's good. It's done. It's over with.
It's over with. There's nothing we can do.
No.
There's nothing we can do at this
point. But that's why I don't like when people say that, though, because this isn't the last budget, and it isn't the last issue of taxes. We'll be dealing with a budget next year, and we'll be dealing with taxes next year. So now you start to prepare for your battle for next year.
Yeah,
because you know it's coming, and you know that you're going to have to fight it. And people coming to a county board meeting saying, "I don't like this tax increase." Okay, next year if they come to the county board meeting and we're doing the same thing, they ought to be able to say, "Well, wait a second. Last year you told us you were getting what you needed. Now you're saying you got to have more." Okay, when does it stop?
It won't.
It won't stop
until, like you were telling me off air, the department heads in a non-political scene where we could probably get those department heads to pay. So let's say Cassie Taylor or.
Well, I think it's a more sanitized environment, because I don't think you want to go out and embarrass department heads about their budget being too much. I mean, I think you have to say, department heads, reconvene a meeting with Cassie Taylor and see if you can come up with something different. See if you can find some reductions somewhere else. Okay, there are always going to be priorities. Okay, because the sheriff's department deserved every dime they got. You know, and so so you're always going to have to balance priorities. Well, but that's what we do as politicians. That's what we do as elected officials. We balance out priorities.
Yeah.
That's our job.
Well, do you have something in that budget? So say Chuck Erickson, he gets an opportunity to cut the budget and he had the vote. Is there something in there that would have really...
Yeah, last night, one of us could have proposed, I want to propose a $5 million budget cut. Okay, well, there's 800 line items, okay? To really do that technically right, you got to go find all these line items, okay, and cut this, and cut that, and cut this, and cut that, okay? I don't know, since county board members aren't at those department head meetings with the county administrator, nor do I necessarily think they should be. I mean, to some extent, the department heads have to be open with the county administrator. I've got to have this, or say, on the other hand, I can give on this. Okay. But, when it comes out before the county board is going to be good at cutting 100,000 here, maybe 50,000 out of this line item. The county board is not going to be able to go find $5 million. The department heads,
because they don't know what
they don't know what,
departments need.
yeah, they don't know what those departments really, 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 really have to have. You can say, and I know the Democrats, oh, well, we can figure all that out at the Oversight Committee hearing. No, you can't. And you really can't do it because there's going to be some things that department heads are going to want to talk about with the county administrator. It's not being done at an
and it's a
oversight committee.
business, right? County government, it's operating like a business. These department heads or these departments within county government, they are going to ask for as much money as they possibly can. It's up to the elected officials to, work with the department heads to find out where they can cut. And really, if the department heads were super ethical people, they wouldn't ask for it. But it is a business, and I get it, right? So, for
Well, I mean, I
example,
think they go in, they ask for as much as they think they can get. I think that's just negotiation, and then you say to them, hey, do you really need this year? Can you wait till next year for that? And the county administrator's got to balance out the sheriff coming in saying, listen, you got to pay my staff more, and the county clerk coming in saying, hey, I got to have more of this, and then we balance it out, say, no, you don't need this year. You don't need that this year. Some of that was done, I'm sure, but what I'm proposing is I don't think the county board, 20 members who have a part-time job should be finding the $4 million. I think you got to send that back to the department heads and the county administrators and let them try to figure out if they can find something.
Mhm. Interesting. Yeah. Well, one thing that I did want to clarify, because this was it's a huge story for me. I didn't even know that so now the sheriffs, I talked with the Sheriff's Association, the Sheriff's Association back in 2022, where the sheriffs are no longer paid by the county. I mean, a little bit of it, like a third of it, comes from the county. Uh, and now the sheriffs are paid for via the state budget. So the state budgets out salaries for county sheriffs all across the state. So they have to be paid, and it's a mandated pay salary for the sheriff of 80% of what the state's attorneys pay. So a lot of sheriffs saw an increase. We talked to Sheriff Matt Lane. I asked him flat out, I go, did you see an increase from that? And he says, yeah. He goes, I get paid 80% of what the state attorney gets paid now. And he says that was a change that happened. Now, what's concerning is, one, we've got your sheriff paid by the state. Now, somebody might say, oh, well, the state's attorneys are paid the same way, and do we see an issue with the state's attorneys? One could argue maybe yes for some, not Erica, because Erica is a gem. Right? She's pretty good. I like her a lot.
Well, Chuck's a gem too, so I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I mean,
Chuck is a gem, and we're talking about Chuck Erickson, who's running in the State House District 88. We talk about the McLean County Board meetings on Fridays after the McLean County Board meetings, but so the sheriffs are paid by the state, and my issue is here: did in this budget, and maybe you don't know it right off the top of your head, did we as a county give that sheriff a salary increase? Because if so, in this budget, then he's getting paid WAPO. And I love Sheriff Matt Lane, okay? But if he just saw an increase and he gets paid by the state, why in the world would we be giving him an increase on top of the increase that he already saw? You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
like, my concern is that the county board was unaware of this change that the state made, and they did not check that, and like, Matt Lane, I mean, he came on the radio, he's very transparent about it, but maybe he didn't say that he got the increase, because I don't think a lot of constituents know that happened here in the state of Illinois.
well, a lot of people don't know that certain laws are passed. I mean, even lawyers don't know every single law that's passed. I mean, if I had the statute book, they'd be, they're almost
But here's the thing: for this tiny little portion that you guys paid the sheriff, if you could give him, if you vote on and in the budget it says, yeah, we're going to give the sheriff an increase, then he got an increase from the state and he got an increase from the county. So then he's got double increase. You know what I mean?
I understand what you're saying. I don't know that happened. I'd have to go back there and look at it a little bit. Matt would be a good person to ask about that, but I don't know that happened. The larger part of where this budget went up and was in salaries. It was, so which would have required us to go look in other places justifying reductions, okay? And it could just be putting something off for you. But I never understand why people they get so like, oh, you can't put that off for a year. The world will come to an end. Homeowners do that every time. I need a new fence in my backyard. Well, I'm going to Disneyland this year. Guess I'll put it up the. I guess I'll put the fence up in my yard next year. I
Yeah.
mean, it just, it's how people run their own budgets.
Mhm.
I mean, they prioritize. They say this is a priority this year.
Well, it's different. So, for example, I love giving this example. My grandma, right, she gives me a birthday card, and she gives me $100 in the birthday card. Now, am I likely to spend that on things that I need, say, a new water heater or something in my house? Probably not. I might go treat myself to
Yeah, treat yourself to something. Yes.
to Olive Garden or something. But that's the thing; it's not their money, and these people are playing with our money, and they have a different outlook when it comes to that. I mean, it's not their money. That
Well, I mean, last night they came in and said, "Listen, I can't afford this. It's going to make my house payment go up. I can't. This is really." And the response I thought was kind of tone deaf from some of the Democrats were, "Well, government needs that money. I mean, we need that money. We know you've got problems, but we got bigger problems. Our problems are bigger than yours. So you
Yeah.
have to give us your money." I mean, to me, that's tone deaf. I mean, it's basically telling the
well, we
taxpayer,
don't go to the government.
we don't care, right?
Yeah.
That you can't afford your house anymore.
We don't
Uh,
care. Our
yeah.
problems are bigger. Well, and that just, I mean, it just speaks to so much. And that's how the schools justify going and spending $16,000 per student, right? Because it's not their money. And
Yeah.
you treat your money very differently
When it's
when
your
it's yours.
money. Yes, you do.
So we're going to come back on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. We're talking.
Oh,
We're going to get to your state rep race because I really need to know how it's going. I saw that you were in Macon County the other day.
Yeah.
Macon County. I want to know what you've been doing on the campaign trail. Talk a little bit about your opposition next on the Morning Buzz. It's Friday, and tomorrow is Saturday, and where am I and David Pop-Lowenstein, who's in the studio with me, where are we going to be tomorrow, David?
Well, we are going to be over at the Republican headquarters on Prospect Avenue. I think is it 207, 211 Prospect Avenue?
No. So it's behind the, you got to go behind the building.
You got to go behind the building. You're right, Chuck. I think it's 211, 207. It's one of those, but we're going to have signs out there directing you. We have this event going on where Kat, you're going to be there.
Yeah.
Hopefully, maybe Ty Smith and Kevin Ferris will also be there.
Mhm.
I will be there.
Mhm.
It's the last chance, the
And-
last push for petition signage, ballot app.
Here's what I know everybody's excited for: free Cities 92.9 t-shirts
That is
and
correct.
free hot cocoa and coffee. So warm up. Big
We're gonna throw
chilly,
some donuts
chilly
in there.
Saturday morning.
Oh,
We're throwing some donuts in there for Chris Christie.
Oh,
Krispy Kreme
donuts!
Chris
Chris
Christie.
Christie. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe Chris Christie will come if we've got donuts.
Well, he's surging in New Hampshire.
Yeah, surging.
He's
Yeah.
growing. He's growing support.
I'm not saying anything.
I'm not saying. Chris Christie. I just can't even believe it. But so we're going to be out there, 211 South Prospect Road in Bloomington, the McLean County headquarters.
And the reason you're going to be there is because some candidates don't have all their petition signatures that they need. So if you want to find your candidate, and you can go out there and sign his or her petition.
And presidential candidates are delayed. They don't turn in at the same time. So filing of your petition, which Chuck Erickson will be doing, the first day you can do that is on the 27th of November through December 4th. It's really a cool experience, Kat. I don't know if you've ever been down to the Illinois State Board of Elections, but there's a very long line, unless you've been able to
secure, you camp out the day before.
Or you have somebody that goes and camp out
Yeah.
for you, because that's what I found. My opponent, when I was running for the state rep, actually had somebody that was willing to go out and sit for him, so that when he showed up about 8 in the morning.
Probably paid for that person to go sit.
Well, Kat, you're disclosing all of the secrets, right?
Well, the reason they go there early, like on Saturday, is because they want to get out of there early on Monday. But I mean, if you're still there before 8 o'clock, I think it's 8 o'clock. I mean,
yeah.
And you're in line, then
Yes.
you're treated as if, even if you're way back, wrapped around up to I-55 or however, I know where that state board, how far that line goes, but even if you're way back up there, you're still counted as filing at 8 o'clock.
And you also get in the lottery if you have an opponent.
Yeah, that's what you
primary.
want. Yeah, that's what everybody does. It's not a secret to any politician who runs for office. They all know how the game is played. So not everybody doesn't know. I mean,
what's really cool though is to hear the conversations going on around you while you're standing in line, because it encompasses every elected official, right? Every elected position, and most of the people who probably aren't like you, well, Kat and Chuck, this is their job. I mean, this is their career. They don't know anything other than what they're doing. And so they're actually applying for the job every 2 years or every 4 years. And it's kind of interesting. Like I said, just to hear the conversation and the desperation.
Well, they need to be citizens. Anyway, let's talk about the Chuck Erickson campaign. Yes, all right. I was down in Macon County. I mean, I try to get to the various counties, as I'm sure my opponent does, and I know that she does.
Hyatt, DeWitt, and Macon, and McLean.
Yes, and I was down there, and it's a conservative group called Restore Our Constitution, and so I went down there, and I was not the speaker, nor was I the planned speaker. I just went down there to say hi to everybody, and I did get the opportunity to speak for like 2 minutes. So, it was a good event. Glad I went. Great people down in Macon County. I mean, we're getting a good reception down there. So, we're doing well.
So Macon County,
well, the district encompasses part of Decatur, but not most of Decatur. Yeah. And it goes around Decatur. It's primarily a rural community district. The buzz is that there may be a third person jumping into the race. And which I always thought this race was odd anyway, because generally when there's an open seat, The whole world runs for it. I mean,
Yeah, they're
That's evidenced in the 53rd.
Well,
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
the
Senate
53rd,
seat where there could be
and
possibly 8
last
candidates.
year
Or
the 105th.
yeah, when you had Kyle, I think it was Hunter, I can't remember.
Yeah.
It was like Kyle Ham, Mike Kirkman,
Dennis
Fitzgerald, who else?
Donald Green.
Yeah, I mean, you generally are going to have more than just 2 candidates. So I think it's good that the voters have a choice. I mean, isn't that what we fight for as Republicans? Is that you actually can have a choice between who you think is going to be the
Well,
best
and I love
person to
primaries
represent
because
you.
it keeps things spicy.
I just happen to think I'm the best candidate, so I'm a little biased in that. But I mean that's because I have a proven record of being a conservative. I've actually worked on budgets. I've actually worked on things that governments do.
Well, one thing that I hope
Other
that
half.
when we send you to be a state representative, one thing that I hope that more state representatives do in Illinois is advocate for county rights and local government, because we're starting to see at the General Assembly chip away at everything we talked about, how the sheriff's salary no longer paid by the county.
They should
by the
local
state.
control. Local control isn't bad, isn't that the claim of conservatives anyway? The best government is the government that's closest to you.
Yes,
This is
yes.
in,
That's
Yes.
closest
You're saying
to
very
you.
Thank
That's
you.
closest to you.
Hey, Chuck.
Hello.
So, like Kat said, the primaries are good, but your seat, actually, that's all it is, because chances are there won't be a candidate on the Dem side.
Well, I mean, some have said that when I win, they'll endorse. I'm not going to say yes. But some have said when I win, they'll endorse me in the general. That's just like, well, that's not going to make any difference.
Yeah, because at that point, they're no different than the 53rd state Senate seat. A Republican will hold that seat, just like the 88th.
Yeah, because the gerrymandering is ridiculous, and they draw certain districts to Republicans and other districts for Democrats. And they took a
very
gamble
few districts
with the
drawn for
91st
Republicans.
because the newly drawn 91st, they kind of took a gamble to try to find out if they were going to be able to secure a Democrat in that seat. That's kind of how the 88th and 105th kind of exist.
Well, we went
because
from 3 state reps in McLean County. It used to be 2,
Now
20
we've got
years
3.
ago. Then it went to 3. Now it's 5.
Oh boy.
We have 5 state reps. We divide one of the largest counties as far as land mass up into 5 state rep districts.
That's insanity. That's
Yep.
insanity.
That was to dilute power out of a predominantly Republican county.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a Republican county. If you
Yes.
get outside. I mean,
Yep.
According to your colleague on the county board, George, we still have it. When back in the 20 years ago, we had 28,000 more Republicans than Democrats. That number has dwindled down to about 7,000.
Wow.
Well, I mean, delusion, right?
Yeah.
And not being responsive to getting out, unreliable voters.
Mm-hmm. Well, get out and sign your petitions. On Saturday, I'll be there from 9 to 11 with Big Paul Blumenstein at the McLean County Republican headquarters on 211 South Prospect Road in Bloomington from 9 to 11 a.m. We've got free t-shirts, free coffee, and free cocoa and donuts for Chris Christie, the alleged Republican. You guys have a great Friday. Bye-bye. Love you.